it's the same thing in consumers because they've constantly been pressured and pushed and manipulated. And then you have Hollywood that says salespeople are bad, mainly because of...
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. On this episode, I bring back Jeremy Miner, one of the best salespeople and sales trainers on the planet that I at least have ever met or come across, and I've studied a bunch of them. You're not going to want to miss this. He gets super tactical. He gets awesome with his lines and tonality and training tips. If you're in sales, which, let's be honest, most of us are in sales in some way or another, you're not going to want to miss this episode. Check it out. Jeremy, my man, welcome back to the show.
Jason, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. I think you had me on the show. What was it, a year and a half ago or something like that? I think I was traveling. I was at my lake house and the internet was spotty and I didn't have back in those days, I don't even think I had a videographer. We didn't even have a videographer. I think it was more about 20 months ago, but we didn't even have a videographer there. So I had like a little thing up above on my computer. I probably looked kind of fuzzy. So,
what you're saying
is, get better every day.
So what you're saying is, since coming on the podcast, life has changed drastically for you.
Your podcast, like 25x stuff, not even 10x, dude. It was like 30x, man.
You know what? I had Gary Vaynerchuk say this is one of the best interviews ever when I worked with him. I'm cutting that out from like the headline of this podcast, and that's going to be the line. Since coming on your podcast, I 25x my business.
Yeah, it could be more, man. There you go. I love it. Well, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Look, a lot's changed. I think when we were talking, like still like things were remote, sales were like online, a lot was picking up. I think I don't even know. I guess I'll throw that question to you and we'll start there has the game changed?
Yeah.
With all the noise that's come out and all the people now making offers and more entrepreneurs and more business getting back to it and how salespeople are supposed to stand out. Has the game changed since we last spoke?
I think it constantly changes. I think there's, here as a society in large, this is just it's social dynamics, right? So I don't know if you remember what we talked about last time, but, I went to college for behavioral science and human psychology. And when you're majoring in behavioral science, you learn a lot about social dynamics. You learn about how, why people do things, like what are behavioral patterns in different societies and individuals and those type of things. And there's a part of our brain called the reptilian part of our brain. Some people call it the croc brain or whatever. It's more of our primitive brain that God, started us with. We don't know all the details. Could have been hundreds of thousands of years ago, millions of years ago. I guess we'll find out one day when we lead this life. But it's that part of our brain that he put into us where we're protecting ourselves. Now, back in the day, let's say 100,000 years ago or whatever, it could have been, that part of your brain that, feels danger when another tribe person is coming into your tribe with weapons, or, you see a tiger in the jungle coming after you. It causes you to go into fight or flight mode to try to protect yourself. Well, we still have that part of our brain in our society now. So, if you go to the zoo and the tiger gets out, you're still feeling fight or flight mode. But you also use that when you feel like somebody's trying to sell you something. And why is that? Because every day when we wake up, we are constantly being sold to pretty much all of the time. Maybe even while we're sleeping. I don't even know, if you leave your TV on. But when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is what? You grab your phone. Besides going to the bathroom, you grab your phone, you get on social media, and what do you see? You see ads, right? Trying to sell you something. Immediately, you're thinking that. You walk out into the kitchen and you turn the TV on while you're eating breakfast and you're busy, and you hear and see commercials trying to sell you something, right? You then get in your car to drive to work or wherever you're going. You turn on the radio. What do you hear? Ads trying to sell you something, right? You drive down the road. Oh, by the way, and what do you see on the sides of the road? Billboards trying to sell you something. It gets even worse. You take your lunch break, or like most people, you're on social media all day while you're supposed to be working. And then you see your grandma pitching her latest, greatest MLM, right? She's posting about it or whatever. So you're constantly being sold to all of the time. And because of that, putting ourselves in our prospect shoes, because we live in the information age where we see that all the time. Whereas, 100 years ago, we just didn't, unless a salesperson came around or we turn on the radio or whatever, right? Even before TV. So because we constantly hear and see that all the time, anytime we get approached by a salesperson, that sounds similar to anything that we're hearing, what happens is it instantly triggers our reptilian part of our brain to go into fight or flight mode automatically. So when we get an email, like I know you get this, you get emails every day, and they'll be like, hey, just bumping this up. I'm just following up with, or I'm just checking in to see, checking in, following up. Those are words we associate with who? Salespeople. So it instantly triggers fight or flight mode. That's why I always say, and I even do this in Reels for free sometimes, you don't want to use words like I'm just following up or I'm just checking in, because all you're doing is triggering your prospect to go into that mode where they think about all the other salespeople that are doing the same thing. And you don't want to be associated with everybody else, because then you get commoditized. So when you're doing and you sound and you use lingo like that, it's just as an example, okay? Your prospects, it's like being in the military. You get back, you're a civilian, and then, a shotgun goes off while you're walking down the street and you're like this, right? It's like that PTSD or whatever they call it. It's the same thing in consumers, because they've constantly been pressured and pushed and manipulated. And then you have Hollywood that says salespeople are bad, mainly because of the way we've been forced to learn how to sell that has caused that, right? And so when we act like everybody else, when we say the same words that everybody does, when we do the same things, we just don't stand out. And what happens, in getting back to my point with social dynamics, is when you sound like other salespeople, you just lower your status in the prospect's mind. And that's why they treat you like, get away from me, call me back later, I'm too busy to talk. So you lower your status. So what you want to do when you come into any type of sales interaction, whether it's in person, whether it's on the phone, Zoom, like we are right now, or whatever you're at, is you want to come in having that same status. Now, you can't just show up and like your clothes cause you to have that status, because I hate to tell you this, you can have on a $5,000 Armani suit and knock on a prospect's door, and they're not going to be like, oh, wow, this salesman has a really nice suit. I better raise the status and buy it. They're just going to be like, oh, salesperson trying to sell me something, because that's what you look like, okay? So the only way you can raise your status is by, really what we call status frames or power frames or authority frames. And you can't even like Oren Klaff talks about it in one of his books, Pitch Anything.
Yep.
Probably one of the only sales trainers that I've ever come across besides what we do that actually teach how to work with human behavior, that teach social dynamics, because most sales trainers they don't know what they don't know, right? They've never been taught that. And so with our social status, we want to raise our status by certain words we use. Or I'll give you an example. So let's say you sell B2B, and you walk into a boardroom, and let's say they're all sitting there, they've got their proposals in front of them or whatever, and you're walking in, and let's say the big CEO hasn't walked in yet, and he walks in. A lot of times they'll kind of like want to take authority over you, or like power or status, whatever you want to call it. And they'll walk in and be like, hey, I only have 60 minutes right on the dot. So, let's get started. Well, if you're like, oh, I really appreciate you guys being here and making the time for us to talk, all you're doing in the prospect's mind is what? Lowering your status. I appreciate you taking the time to be with me, because now it's like you're needy, like their time is more important than your time. Like, gross. So what I'd want to do is I'd want to take that status back, and I'd say, oh gosh, you guys must have a lot of time on your hands today. I've got 35, 40 minutes max before my next appointment. Should we go and get started? And you'll watch the CEO like, huh? You'll literally watch their guard just come down, because your status, it's not all the way raised yet, but it just got raised. Instead of them trying to take power over you and lower your status, you literally just flip the script, as some people would say, and you raised your status where they view you differently. And when your prospects start to view you differently, they become far more open to what you're offering. And I know that was a rant, but that's where
it was great. And I think it's funny because I run an agency, right? That's my full-time job, and from a consulting standpoint. And it's the same thing in the marketing world. Everyone's starting to sound like everyone else. Every ad is starting to look like everybody else's. Yeah. Everyone's giving the same guarantee, the same lines, the same promises, the same hooks. Everyone's copying everyone. And we try to tell our clients, everyone's zigging, zag. You have to be a little bit, and they're like, no, I saw this person, and this is the ad. This is the ad they're doing.
Yeah. So it's so true. And I'll make a comment on that. Our chief revenue officer, his name's Marco. He's one of my partners in the firm as well. And our ads crush everybody's ads. I mean, we know what everybody's spending and their ad costs. We just hear about it through the grapevine, and we're like, man, like they're doing really well revenue wise, but their profit margins are so much lower because they're spending they're having to spend 3 times as much to acquire as a lead as we are. And that's because we take a much different approach. We raise our status. Like if you ever watch me in any of our ads, I'm not going to be like, I know you're probably thinking like, this sounds too good to be true, or I know you're skeptical right now. All I'm doing when I say that is I'm lowering my status, because why would I want them to even think like that? So we might say, now, luckily for you, we've got a PDF that's going to do this, this, and this. And I go through it. And at the end, I'll be like, and by the way, you're welcome. Because I'm raising my status. Like, why would I put skepticism in their mind? Why would I put, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is in their mind, like other marketers do. And that's why our ad cost is like nothing. I mean, we just ran a challenge where we had 17,000 people register for it, like a 5-day challenge a couple of weeks ago. And our average cost per lead was less than $6 a lead, which is unheard of from like Facebook and Instagram ads. Crazy.
Yeah, your ads are good. And I want to talk to you about online advertising in a second. But if you're talking about how salespeople are all starting to sound the same and it triggers PTSD, part of what you do in your business, well, not part, your main business is teaching people how to be salespeople.
Yeah.
Are you now worried that you're going to crowd the market with everyone who's sounding the same, and the lines that you're now teaching people how to say and the things you're teaching people how to say is eventually going to become that triggers a sale, that's a sales line again. Oh, I know this because every other salesperson is telling me that. If you're constantly training salespeople the way, wouldn't that eventually be the outcome anyways?
Well, our sales techniques are not something new. Our sales techniques are just human behavior 101. So it's the way the brain is already working. I mean, you're talking about 8 billion plus people on the earth. 1 out of 8 people, I don't know if everybody knows this, literally 1 out of every 8 people that walk on this planet is in some type of sales position. So you're talking about 1.3, 1.4 billion people. I'm not sure we're ever going to be able to reach those people in my lifetime. You know, I'm not 15 years old. I just don't think
another podcast appearance, and maybe, man, like
another podcast appearance. I just don't think that's going to happen. But the thing is like we're using techniques. This is what I always train. Like we have a program that's called Advanced Inner Circle, and we only let 50 people a month in. That's very high level. You know, it's quite a bit of funds. They already have to be making a certain amount of commissions every month in their job before we even let them in. And it's usually a 60-day waiting list to even get in after an application. And that's not a sales technique. It's just we keep them at 50 people a month. We can't have thousands a month on there because it would dilute the fulfillment of that product. And what I always tell them on there, because each of them to be on there, they have to be making, I think, at least 10 or 12 grand a month already in commissions. So they're not like, broke or whatever. And so what I always tell them is like, look, when you master NEPQ, neuro emotional persuasion questions, you master what we're training you. Your prospects don't even feel like they were sold to. They don't feel that you're a salesperson. They view you differently. When your prospects start saying words like, you could sell anything to anybody, you could sell ice to an Eskimo, most of those people never buy because they feel like they were sold. They feel like you're just trying to make a commission. So when we train these skills and these salespeople, in these different industries start making, 30 grand a month, 50 grand a month, 80 grand a month, their prospects don't feel like they were ever sold to. So if you're a prospect and you don't feel like you're sold to, it's hard for you to pick up on lines like most salespeople would use an option close. Like, do you want the red one or the blue one? When do you want to take delivery? Tomorrow at 3 or Monday at 5, like the assumptive close, like those type of closing techniques people pick up on. But when you're taking them through our process, we take them and they're like building a gap in their own mind from where they are compared to where they want to be, where they feel so much internal tension and when a prospect feels internal tension, you can't get them to feel that by telling them they're wrong or telling them why they need to buy or telling them why you're better. That's external sales pressure. That wears off, right? That's why you have cancels and refunds, because it wears off. You persuaded them. So what we train salespeople to do is we train them how to get the prospect to do all the work, the prospect to sell themselves, the prospect to convince you why they feel your offer, your solution is what they're wanting and why they feel it is, okay? And when we ask commitment questions at the end for them to commit to take the next step, they quite literally don't feel like they're ever sold. So it's just a different way to look at selling than how most salespeople or trainers would look at it, as like selling is adversarial, you against the prospect, trying to win them over, pressure them, push them so you make money. That's literally what average salespeople think sales is in our day. if you want to be like a top 1% earning salesperson where the prospect doesn't even feel like they were sold to after they bought, where it's their idea, not yours, you have to understand that selling is very collaborative. It's you working with the prospect to help them find problems they didn't even think they had, and then help them solve those problems. And they just view you more as like the expert, the trusted authority, whereas all the other salespeople, they just view as somebody who's trying to sell them something and they're commoditizing. It's just a different way to view selling at all, if that makes sense.
And being okay walking away if you are not the right fit or not the right solution.
Yeah, and true, and that's rare. When I was in the trenches, calling leads and I had a 17-year sales career before I retired, and then took a year off, then started 7 level back in mid 2018 or whatever. It was very rare that my jobs that I had, the products and service couldn't solve a problem for those people, maybe 2 or 3% of the time. But you're right. Sometimes I quite literally walked into a boardroom in a B2B position I had, walked into a boardroom, and this is at the height of my career. I mean, I was making like multiple 7 figures a year in commissions as a W-2 rep. And I remember walking in to have a meeting with like the VP of finance and some other person. And after asking like 3 or 4 different questions and spending only maybe 7-8 minutes with them, I'm like, yeah, this is not what they're looking for. And I told him like, hey, based on what you're telling me, I'm not quite sure we could even help you. But what I can do, if it helps, is I can show you a couple other companies that are probably going to do a better job for you in this area. Because it was something they were looking for is completely different than what we offered. And it was almost like they were like, well, how can we work with you? Like, how can we make this work? It was like, because I pulled out, they were like trying to pull me back in. And, even I still remember those clients gave me a ton of referrals from other companies, but you had to be willing to walk away. But I don't want salespeople to think like, oh, half the leads I talk to, my stuff doesn't fit into what they're looking for, especially if they're like responding to some type of ad or booked on your calendar or put in their name and phone number for somebody to call them back. Like, they recognize they have at least something going on. They might not understand it or the depth of the problem, but I don't want to make sure everybody thinks like, oh, well, Jeremy said and so half my leads don't qualify. Like, you don't want to do that either.
Do you think any person could become a top-notch salesperson? Like any person, or there's maybe something in the genes that produce top salespeople? Like, do you think Jeremy Miner, could take anyone off the street and say, come spend 1 month with me under my wing and I will make you a ton of money and I can make you a top salesperson?
Well, I mean, our clients would say that we're able to do that because let me ask you this question. Let me ask everybody on here. Were you born out of your mother's womb with advanced questioning skills? Yes or no?
No.
No. Were you born out of your mother's womb with advanced tonality skills?
No.
No. Were you born out of your mother's womb with advanced objection handling and objection prevention skills?
No.
Okay. So these are all acquired skills. These are all learned skills. And let me prove my point even more to this. The first sales job that I applied for, okay, this is going to be funny. I very rarely tell this story, was with Larry H. Miller. It's a huge, they're a company. I don't know if they're still out in Utah, but that's where I was going to school at the time. They had like tons of different dealerships all over Utah. Larry H. Miller was the owner of Utah Jazz. I think his family still owns it. I'm not quite sure. But I remember applying at one of their car dealerships. I was still in college trying to get a job, and I took a DISC profile test, the personality test.
Yep.
And I remember I took it. And they brought me back in there and they're like, yeah, based on what we're reading, it doesn't look like you're really cut out for sales, but we really appreciate your time. And I'm like, I guess I'm not cut out for sales. I don't know. And I left thinking I wasn't cut out for sales. I want you to imagine that, right? And so like probably about 4 or 5 months later, I got this job selling home security systems door to door. They didn't have a personality test because they just hire everybody because it's straight commission. And who cares if they don't sell? We'll just stick bodies out on the doors, right? And I started acquiring skills, right? I started learning human behavior. That was my major. I started, how do I tie in social dynamics and raising my status? Because I was learning about these things from people like Robert Cialdini. You've probably read some of the books, Persuasion, and other professors I was studying online, plus my professors there at this college I was going to. And I'm like, how do I tie, human behavior into like a sales process? Because it wasn't like there was a book that says, stage, from point A to point Z, here are the questions you have to ask. Here's the right tone. Here's how to, pre-frame objections so they don't come in their minds. It's not like the professor's not teaching that. They're just giving you a few data points and studies, which is good. but it didn't really show me what to ask and say. So I'm like, how do I tie in the theory of behavioral science and the way the brain makes decisions and make a step-by-step sales process? Because I didn't have a choice. I had to sell, right? And within that next year, I was the number one salesperson in the company. The next year, number one salesperson. You're talking about tens of thousands of reps across the United States, number one. And 2 years before, I flunked a DISC personality test because it said I wasn't good at sales. See, that's personality selling, because we can take somebody that's completely introverted, that doesn't like to talk, and teach them a structured sales process of certain questions to ask and how to use their tone in different parts of that. Because there's certain questions that require more of a curious tone. Like, John, can you walk me through, what do you guys do for, to gain new leads and clients now? Like if you're a marketing agency like you, right? Or there might be a part of your questioning as you get into that discovery process that are more, challenging or skeptical. Like, what happens if you don't do anything about this though? See, that's a skeptical or challenging tone. And then there's other parts of that conversation where you're going to lean in and you're going to have more of a concern tone, a tone that shows empathy. What's really holding you back from moving forward? See, that's a concern tone. That's not something anybody's born with. I hate to tell that to everybody. So it doesn't matter if you're introverted, if you're extroverted. What we find with extroverted salespeople is we have to teach them how to tone it down. Like they're too talkative. They're too excited. Okay. And then you have us in the middle. Like I'm in the middle. Like I'm called, it's a new thing. They call it like an ambivert, or I could be wrong. Yeah, something like that. It's an extrovert, introvert, and I'm right in the middle. Like I can take on like both roles. Like, I can get on stage in front of, I did a keynote back in August with a huge insurance company that has like 27,000 agents. And there was like 8,000 of their salespeople in the Denver Convention Center. I can get up there and no problem go through everything and not even be nervous. But then I can go to dinner with like 2 or 3 people at the end of that and not even say a word.
I'm the same way.
You're like me, right? I can put it on and I can take it off. I can be by myself. So whether you're extroverted, introverted, in the middle, and that's why I hate personality tests, because selling is something that you learn. Most salespeople sell with their personality because they're never taught the right skills. And so they personality sell. And that's why, let's say they're good at selling cars and they make a decent income and they're like, I want a career change. I'm going to go sell life insurance. And then a year later, they come back to the car industry with their tail beneath their legs because they couldn't figure it out. It's because they were personality selling. And it might have worked in this industry, but it's not going to work over here in this industry, or vice versa. And so once you understand what we train with NEPQ and the right questions asked at the right time with the right tone, it doesn't matter. This is how we're going into every industry and duplicating. We're training 158 different industries right now, and we're getting duplication in all of them. And they're all completely different, from home improvement, where they might be selling windows, to, marketing agencies like yours, to, we might train car dealerships, to life insurance, to cybersecurity, medical device. I mean, it doesn't matter the industry. We're duplicating in all of those because we're not teaching personality selling where just 2 or 3% of their people are going to pick it up and go with it. We're able to take like really, really sucky salespeople that are on like the firing board and at least make them average. And we're able to take average salespeople and make them really good. And we're taking the really good salespeople, making them like great, like legends. And when you can go in and duplicate that in any industry and move all your salespeople up to that level, you're talking like you're making 5, 10 times more as a company. And we're even talking like Fortune 1000 clients we have, and a few Fortune 500s that have done that.
That's awesome. I mean,
bunch of boring stuff.
No, it's good. Look, one of the things I like about you and your way of selling is, you even talked about in the beginning, is sounding different and sounding like you care, not using, in fact, one of my best producing pieces of content, there's actually 2. One is where I actually credit you and I say, I use this line because of my talk with Jeremy. And then the other is a clip of us talking about it where it's, don't call it a contract, call it an agreement. And everyone I send that, everyone who sees that clip, obviously there's more to it. Everyone who sees it is like, that's great. Yes, I understand it. And seeing that way. Are there lines that we need to stop saying? Like, well,
that's one of them. Like, you don't want to say.
I want you to. I want you to expand on it. Lines the industry is using that if you had your chance right now, you'd be like, here are 5 lines the industry is using, and I'm going to erase them. No one's allowed to use it anymore. And here's what they should use instead.
Yeah. So just the same one, sign the contract. You'd rather say like, okay, just going to have you authorize the agreement. That gives us permission to, and you explain the end benefit of what they want. So now there's a reason for them to authorize. Authorize the agreement is just a neutral term. It doesn't sound as scary as signing the contract. It means the same thing. That's an example. Another example, like I said earlier, never use the words, I'm just following up, or I'm just checking in. To the prospect, the way they interpret that is, I'm just trying to sell you something and I'm just calling you back to get your money. That's how the prospect interprets it. I mean, when you read emails that says, hey, I'm just checking in or I'm just following up, what's the first thing that goes to your mind? Oh, I'm so glad that salesperson I said no to 2 months ago is following up. Like, what goes on in your mind?
Or this must have got lost in your inbox, around that one. So I know you're very busy, so you must have missed this. So I'm sending it. Sending it again. Well, I'm busy enough to miss this one too, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a term that just started being recently used, probably in the last 5 or 6 years, that everybody's using. So you sound like everybody else. So those are words you want to avoid. Like, instead of saying following up or checking in, let's say that you had a lead a couple months ago, and for whatever reason they didn't move forward. Instead of saying, hey, I'm just calling back, I'm just following up, I'm going to call them like, hey, John, I know it's Jeremy Miner with XYZ. I know we talked a couple months ago about you guys and X and Y and Z. Have you guys found what you're looking for? Or are you still looking for? And I'm going to repeat back what they said they wanted then. Now, not everybody's going to be like, oh, no, I'm still looking. But there's going to be a lot. They're like, actually, yeah, things have changed. Or, come to think about it. Or it's a way to at least start the conversation where I don't sound like everybody else. Hey, and I'm going to say, hey, yeah, it's just, Jeremy, I know we talked a couple of months ago and I just had time to get back to you. That's another way, because that builds your status. I just had time to get back to you again. Now, you're not going to do that on leads that you've never talked to, because that sounds arrogant, right? But if you had leads that you couldn't sell to a couple months ago, they didn't buy for whatever reason, that you talked to, they didn't move forward. Hey, I know we talked a couple months ago and I'd mentioned that I might have time to get back to you, but I've been busy. So I'm just getting back to you now. It just implies that you're busy. You've got other clients. You don't need them. So that's a way to relanguage that. Other ways to, like I said, don't come in the meeting and say, I appreciate you, taking your time out of the day to meet with me, because all it does is wreaks desperation. Or when you leave a voicemail, hey, I'm with XYZ company and the reason why I called was blah, 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 blah. Can you please call me back? The word please is just a needy word. So instead, it just lowers your status. So I'm going to relanguage that. Hey, John, I saw that you had let's just use a marketing agency, for example. Sure. What's the problem you solve for most of these prospects? And I'll just do a message for that. Tell me.
Let's say paid advertising.
Okay, but what problem do you solve though?
So they need attention and awareness, and they need a way to drive in leads online.
Okay. Hey, John, let's say this is a first message. Hey, John, this is just Jeremy Miner. I saw that you had responded to one of our ads yesterday and asked us to call you back about looking at possible outside help to get like a higher quality lead. And I just had time to get back to you to see if I could help. I'll be available here for just a little bit today. So here's my number. And like I said, I'll be available here for a little bit today. Talk to you then. Now, what does that sound like? Well, the last part, I'll be available here for just a little bit today. I'm not saying, please call me back. I'm telling them basically, I'm busy. I'm raising my status. Now, what I'm also doing on that voice message, I'm saying you responded to one of our ads and asked us to call you back. Now, why would I say that? Because I'm reminding them they responded to that. They're asking me to call them back. Ask us to call you back about looking at possible outside help. Now, why would I say possible outside? Why would I want to neutralize that? Why would I not want to be assumptive and be like, you'd asked us to call you so that you could fix your problems and get a higher quality lead? Why would I not be so assumptive there in the beginning?
Well, one is you want to make sure that you're coming in from a position that you're going to help them, and you want to see if you're even the right fit.
Yeah, you don't want to be too assumptive in the beginning, because especially with A-type personalities, which if you're calling on business owners or high-level executives, most of them are. So when you really become too assumptive in the beginning with that type of personality, you're just going to have a lot of people that they just don't call you back because they feel the sales pressure. But by just me neutralizing the word before, because before you talk to them, how much credibility or trust do you have? Like zero, right? So you can't trigger sales resistance. So just by changing that word to looking at possible outside help so that you guys could get a higher quality lead. See, notice how I'm already getting them into what? End result thinking. So that for your industry, so that you guys could get a higher quality lead or whatever you want to say there. So I'm getting them to focus on the end result, which is a higher quality leads so they could scale their business. You do that type of frame, you're taking more of a status. You're raising your status and you're showing that you're busy. You got lots of other clients, and drastically people that call you back will completely change compared to 10% that call you back. That's just a couple of different examples.
No, it's great. And I've noticed the most important part is where you enunciate and where your tonality changes. So, and I know we talked about it, but because I think people are going to watch this and they're going to write down the line that you just said, and then they're just going to say the line.
Yeah.
What percentage comes down to the right thing to say versus the tonality of what to say?
I mean, it's just behavioral science 101. And probably a lot of people have read it in books, but they've never been trained how to use their tone. I mean, how many of us have read a book? Because like I said, I've read, 5 books a month times 12 months a year. That's 60 books a year times like 23 years. Usually when I say read, I usually read 2 or 3 and I listen to 2 in audios when I'm driving around, just kind of like you, right? So how many of those books on sales and persuasion say 73% of the sale depends on your verbal and nonverbal skills? That is true, but none of them know why. Because if you don't have a background in behavioral science and human behavior and social dynamics, you just wouldn't know. So you're just like copying and pasting from another book that got it from this other guy. And then nobody knows how to trigger, like how to use their tone to your advantage. You just know that your tone's important, but nobody trains you how to use your tone to be important. That's a big thing that we do that really gets results, because it quite literally is like 70% of you making that sale is based on how the prospect interprets why you're asking the question. So, and I want everybody to write this down. This is important. Your tonality, your tone, is how your prospect interprets the meaning behind your question. Okay? So let's say if I'm asking a consequence question, I'm not going to ask a consequence question 2 minutes into a conversation because I don't have a lot of trust and credibility that early on. But let's say I'm still on that discovery 12, 13 minutes later, 15 minutes later, after I've helped them build a gap from where they are compared to where they want to be. My questions have opened up where they found not just one problem, but 2 or 3 other problems they didn't realize they had. I can then lean in once they see what their future is going to look like, once the newfound problems are solved, and I'm going to use okay, but what are the ramifications if you don't do anything about this and your lead quality keeps going down? And I'm repeating back the consequence they said. What happens if you don't do anything about this? See, that's a consequence question. Now, depending on the industry, I'm going to make that industry specific, right? So with your industry, marketing, okay, but what happens if you guys don't do anything about this and your lead quality keeps going down? And like you had mentioned, your sales keep stagnating another 3, 6, 12 months from now. Like, what are the ramifications for you at that point? Now, notice how I started that consequence question with a skeptical, challenging tone, but that last sentence, I lowered my voice into a more concerned tone. Now, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just be skeptical the whole throughout? Because I know if I'm too skeptical, they're going to get defensive. But I start being, okay, but what happens if you don't do anything about this and your lead quality keeps going down? And like you had mentioned, your boss starts threatening your job. What happens then? See, my voice lowers into a concerned tone. That triggers them to emotionally open up because they trust you more because they feel like I'm concerned for them. They feel like I understand their unique situation the most. You know why? Because they just interpreted that question based on my concerned tone that I care about them. But if I didn't use that last half and more in a concerned tone, they could have interpreted it completely different, like I was being a prick. That's how your tone influences people.
It's like, I don't know if you've seen this, but psychologists put out, there's a phrase, or you use any phrase, and however you read it with tone in different areas, it's the same words being said, but they imply so many different things just based off the tonality on how you say that one phrase. Well,
it's the same thing. You do it in your text messages, right? Have you ever got a text message where you did 2 paragraphs of something you're really worried about or concerned to somebody you really care about, like your best friend, and they just respond with, okay. How do most people interpret that? Like they just don't care.
Yeah.
But on their end, they could care. But let's say they were driving down the road and they're like, okay. And that's how they thought when they sent that text. But you're interpreting that because you can't hear their tone as them saying, okay, like they don't care. See, that's why I always tell salespeople, like, what should I text back? I'm like, well, you can, but I'd first try to call them first. And if you can't get a hold of them, I'm going to text them. But texting's dangerous because they can't interpret your tone.
Unless you just get the letter K, and then it's like a brush off. Like just the letter K is I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
That there's no misinterpreting.
Yeah, so that's just an example. Yeah. I mean, your tone. Quite literally, your tone is how prospects interpret what you're saying and asking. Because if you say it like in a monotone, well, what happens if you don't do anything about this and the situation gets worse? You're not going to open up as many people. It's like, okay, but what happens if you don't do anything and the situation gets worse? See, that's a concerned tone. That causes them to feel like I'm concerned about them and their welfare. Now, I can't do that in the very beginning because I don't have much trust, but later on in that conversation, I have a lot more trust.
We're going to start wrapping up because I have rapid questions. We have to, like I said, I told you before the podcast started, I put out that you were going to come on and I got a list of like, I want to know this. So we're going to blast through it because I think you'll have fun doing it. I think we'll make good content for you. But before that, I want to ask one question because we're now moving a lot of sales online. There's a lot of now trying to disarm the prospect before you even get them on the phone or before you even speak to them. And it comes down to your ad, a lot of the marketing. You touched on this in the beginning, but how have your skills, and since there's no tonality in text copy, let's say, or on a landing page, how have your skills, your sales skills translated into your marketing, and how can people take those sales skills and help their own marketing?
Well, it's all about, like you said, disarming the prospect. A lot of it is pre-framing. So even when you're on sales calls, it's learning how to ask certain questions and seed certain things you say in that first couple of minutes that pre-frame and prevent most objections from happening. So I think marketers are starting to pick up on that because they're realizing things they used to do before, like being really crazy hype-ish and stuff, doesn't really translate that well anymore because people have heard it so much, right? Instead of you doing an ad where you're setting on a Lambo, where even if it's yours, a lot of people might not believe it's yours because they've heard stories where influencers just rent Lambos that aren't even there. So instead of that, you might want to do an ad where you got your videographer in the back and you're just driving the Lamborghini and you don't even mention it. Quite literally, don't even mention the car you're in. They can tell what kind of car you're in, okay? That is going to influence somebody to believe you're more legitimate and more real and authentic when you don't bring up those type of things. Or, hey, I'm just sitting here today in my 15,000 square foot penthouse. You don't need to say that, okay? You just walk around in your 12,000 square foot penthouse and people just see you. You don't even mention it because typically extremely wealthy people don't bring up that kind of stuff because they're not needy. They have a much higher status and that's how they portray themselves. So when you're doing your ads, if you're really hype-ish and really excited, what you're doing psychologically in the prospect's mind is you're lowering your status because they just view you like they view everybody else that's hype-ish and salesy because that's what they've been used to. So you want to get them to pull you in. You want them to do the work. And that's what we really try to do in our ads too.
What about from a copy perspective?
Give me some context.
So it's just text. You're putting out an ad. You're not on the video. It's a picture, right? Which you have. I've seen your ads. Like it's a picture. How do you use the sales skills in just copy to get them to read?
Let's say that you're trying to get them to book a call instead of you getting on there and be like, hey, we're going to have a free 30-minute strategy session or discovery call, which everybody knows what that really means most of the time, right? They already know that's a sales call. We might put in our ads like, hey, when we're on the call, our team members will ask you certain questions. And at the end of the call, we might find that there's really not much we can do for you. And we might not even be able to help you. And at that point, we can give you, maybe somebody else who can help you better. So I just want to make sure you understand, good possibility we can help you, but after 10 minutes, we might find that we can't, and then we'll give you a better option. So that's all we're doing. We're lowering their guard by admitting that we might not be able to help them. Now, we're not being negative. We're just right in the middle. We're neutral. We're unbiased. We're not quite sure we can help them yet. We have to find out more details about their situation and kind of their issues they're having now and what that's preventing them from being able to do compared to where they want to be. And we might find that I wouldn't use a good fit because most people say a good fit. That's just been really overused, like in consultative selling models, I'd say the last 20 or 30 years. So I might say, you might find that this might not be what you're looking for, or we might find that we won't be able to help you either. And if that's the case, we'll tell you and maybe give you some different options of other companies that might be able to help you better. And that typically lowers people's guards down because they feel like, hey, this company is really trying to help me solve my problems and get where we want to be. And that's when we start at some level, that is our thing, right? Like we quite literally could triple our ad spend right now and triple our revenue overnight, but it would break our fulfillment system. So we won't do that because our brand and our customers' fulfillment and their results is far more important for us than us, making gazillions of dollars every month, because our brand is long-term. Companies that do that type of stuff, they're here and there. They come in for 3, 4, 5 years and then they're gone because they can't get their clients' results. That won't be us. This company will be in 10 years, 25 years, 50 years, when I'm not even here, 100 years. And that's what you have to build as a company, that where your prospects, your clients feel that you're in it for them. Now, that doesn't mean they get it for free or you discount it 90%. I mean, with us, I spent years and decades acquiring those skills. I spent money on those skills. I learned those skills that I'm transferring to you so that you can make way more money than you are. And those are very valuable things that we train you. How could we just give them away to you for hardly anything? We just can't, right? So there has to be a trade, currency to trade for the skills for you to be able to make that type of money, like our other clients who sell exactly what you are. And when you position it that way, it makes sense and it emotionally opens up your prospects to trust you far more and look at you as an expert. Whereas other people, they might just look at them as, yeah, they're really cool, but I don't trust them because I feel like they're just out for my money.
Would you call out objections in the ad? Common objections?
You could, but I don't know. Well, I don't know if I would just call it out as objection. Like, now you might be thinking, I just might seed it. So let's say, like if I'm doing a 5-day challenge, right? And let's say on the back end, we're going to offer them one of our training programs, but we're going to give it to them for 50% off or whatever, like a deal of a lifetime or whatever we want to do. Okay. It just depends on what we're doing. So in my slides, when I'm going through an offer, what we do is we would put testimonials from other clients who also had the same objections that we know we're typically going to get. Like the 3 biggest objections we get for our industry is, number 1, I don't have enough money. Number 2, will this work for what I sell? We don't just train one industry. We train 158 different industries.
Yep.
Forbes magazine says there's literally only 158 industries and subsets of each of those. We are practically in all of those. So a big objection we'll get is, will it work for what I sell? My product is so unique. People won't let me ask them questions. People are mean. Or they might say, I live in Spain and if I ask questions, people are really mean here, like they're not humans or something. Or they'll sell in B2B or B2G and they're like, I don't know, my prospects would never open up like that. They're just hardcore. They want the facts. Well, that's just because they don't know how to get them to want to open up, right? So we might put a testimony in there like, just like this guy who came to me after an event and he sells XYZ product. He's like, I don't know, Jeremy. I don't know if this will work for me. I sell XYZ product. It has to be sold a certain way, or my prospects won't let me ask questions. And I said, interesting. I said, Bob, let me ask you, are your prospects that you talk to human? He's like, yes, they are. Do the prospects you talk to have problems and or emotional needs? Yes. Does your solution solve those problems or emotional needs? Yes. Then I think you answered your question. And here's what he wrote 3 months ago. After I put in the training, I became the #1 salesperson. My income went from here to here. I can't believe I put this up. And we'll have the testimonial there from the freaking prospect. And that answers their question they have in their mind. I'm not bringing it up. I'm saying, just like this client who said, and then I'll repeat back the objection. I'm not saying they have the objection listening. I'm just pre-handling by having our clients who had the same concern, and this is the results they got once they overcame it. So that's really powerful, and why we quite literally, like let's say we have 5,000 people at the end of that, when we go through the offer, we have over 30% of those that will pay $3,000 for what we offer from cold traffic. That's really, really high conversion rates. There's nobody out there getting 30% cold traffic who never knew you before they got on there to convert at that level in that type of price point. But it's because we're pre-framing the objections we know that they have in their mind, and we're helping them overcome it. Because we look at it from ourselves as like, if we can't help our prospects overcome those objections, that's our fault, because then they stay in the status quo, the problems stay the same, and nothing ever changes for them. So as sales professionals, we have to take responsibility to learn how to have a higher sales ability so we can help our prospects overcome their concerns so they can move forward, get their problem solved, and get where they want to be. And when I was in the trenches as a salesperson, that's how I always viewed it. If I literally lost a sale, I never said, oh, the prospect's mindsets are bad, or that was a bad lead, or I can't believe it. And I would, most salespeople blame their prospects. I'd be like, what did I not ask them? What did I say in that first meeting that triggered that other decision maker to like really look weird at me when I brought up that point? And I would go back and I would analyze and everything so I could make changes the next prospect.
Like an athlete looking at game tape.
100%. Exactly like Tom Brady would break something down. That's how I'm breaking everything I did. And even when I was doing, even when I was making like multiple 7 figures a year in commissions, I was always, how do I get better? How do I do this? I'm always learning. We're still learning, because if you're not learning, you're just digressing.
I love it. And speaking of like content that brings people in, your content's been on point. So I'm going to help your videographer with some more content here by giving them,
I've got a few more minutes. Perfect.
We're going to feed your TikTok videos right now. Like I said, I asked a bunch of people. I said you were going to be on. Give us your best questions, and they're all objections. So
here's what I want to preface them, and I'll answer a few objections. But I think what a lot of people don't understand is objections doesn't necessarily cause a prospect to make, if you're really good at objection handling, you're going to make 5 times more, because objections are triggered by you, the salesperson. It's not like the prospect woke up that morning and they're like, when I get on Zoom with Jason, when he asked me that 5th question, because his tone sounds too excited, I'm going to go into fight or flight mode and say, enough with the questions. Just tell me how much it's going to cost on tape. I'm interested. It's not like they planned that. That was just a reaction from what you said them, or how your tone would sound too pitchy, or how you sounded salesy, or that question was too rhetorical that caused them to go into fight or flight mode, that caused objections.
You're seeding right in, because number one is all they want to do is get to the price right away. How do I handle that?
It's a downstream issue based off what you said in the beginning that triggered them to throw up resistance because they feel like you're just trying to sell them. That should literally never happen. Like when I was in sales, I can count on my hand, this hand right here, in a 17-year sales career, how many people 2 or 3 minutes said, enough with the questions, just tell me the price and I'll tell you if I'm interested. One of the biggest reasons that is, even if you ask, because a lot of people are like, oh, but I ask questions. Oh, but it's how you're asking the questions. Because if you ask a question and Jason, you start talking, right? So you ask a surface level question on your script, you start talking, and I just sit here and go like this. And then at the end, I pause and so what I think I heard you say, Jason, is you're doing this, you're doing that. Now, first of all, that's really weird, because if you're in a real conversation with your friend, do you say stuff to your friend and your friend's like, Jason, I think what I'm hearing is X. See, it's unnatural. It sounds scripted. It sounds salesy. So you are going to trigger fight or flight. Mirroring does not work with human behavior. I hate to tell everybody, I know you've read books that says that. It just doesn't work because it doesn't sound human. It doesn't sound like a real conversation. The second thing they do is they'll sit back, they'll listen to the prospect because they've been taught to listen, and then they'll pause for 2 seconds and they're like, okay, cool. Gotcha. Yeah. Let me ask you, John. Or, okay, yeah, gotcha. That's awesome. I'm curious. And it sounds scripted. And when you sound scripted, you sound like a telemarketer. And it instantly will trigger them to go into fight or flight mode. So what you want to do when you're conversing, when you're talking to me, Jason, I'm going to go like this. I'm going to use what are called verbal cues. These are easy. They're just sounds out of your mouth to show them that you're present. Now, you're not going to do them every 2 seconds like I'm doing. I'm like fast forwarding this.
Yep.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Okay, but I'm not understanding. See, what I'm using is I'm using verbal cues.
Like you're out for drinks with your friends.
That lead into my next question. Now that's called bridging. So you have to bridge from question to question. So imagine a bridge. You've got this little ladder that bridges from question to question. That keeps it natural. So you use your verbal cues. Okay, but walk me back when you said, But I'm not understanding. See, that verbal cue bridges into my next question, and that causes the prospect to stay engaged like it's a real conversation. And you will quite literally never have prospects that say, enough with the questions, get to the point. Now, let's say that you do all that. And 1 out of 10 billion sales calls that you do still says, enough with the questions. Can you just, or let's say they do this. Got cotton mouth here. Let's say they're like, oh yeah, I just really need to know the price points of what you offer. Now, depending on what you sell is depending on how you're going to word this. So let's say that, I'll just give you an example. Let's say if you sell, let's say if you sell a real estate education program. Can I use that? It just came to my mind.
Yep.
And let's say you've got, you don't have just one product with one price point. You've got several. So you're going to say like, oh, so they're like, yeah, I kind of need to know just some quotes and some price points to see if I can afford it. Oh, yeah. We'll go through all that for sure. Now, just so you're aware, we don't have like one product with like one price point. We've got like multiple different products. And it really all depends on kind of like what your understanding is of like real estate and investing now, like your experience, like how many homes you bought compared to what you're trying to do, like how many you're wanting to be at. And once we understand those details, I can go through all the different options and quotes we have. Would that help you more if I did that? See how I handled that? I acknowledged it. Now, you don't want to say like, oh, well, I don't even know if we can help you yet. Let me ask you a few questions first, because then you're trying to avoid it, like throw it underneath the rug, and that's still going to trigger resistance. Now, let's say if you sold life insurance. See, you can even use this to your advantage. Oh, yeah. We'll go through all the different options for sure. Now, just so you're aware, we work with over 40 of the top carriers here in the state. And it all depends on like your health and like your age and like if you've had any like medications you're using compared to like, what your expenses are, kind of what that looks like. And once I understand those basic details, I can go through all the different options that they would have for you. Would that help you more? See, I can use that to my example. So whatever it is, there's going to be a few tweaks we would do that. And at the end, would that help you more if I did that for you? See, I'm flipping the power move because that was just a power move they did. They don't realize they're doing what's called a power frame on you, but you have to flip that where you take that power frame back. That's just examples of what you do there. Hopefully that helped everybody.
Let's do one.
So you're like right in the middle there.
Yeah, I want to do one more because I like this one. I like another one after that, but I think it's just funny. All right. How do you build rapport on a sales or start the sales call?
Well, okay. So you want to start off with what are called connection questions that take the focus off you and immediately put it on the prospect. Okay. So let's say if we're selling marketing agency services and let's say they booked on the calendar, here's what most salespeople do. They'd get on Zoom. Let's say it's on Zoom. Okay, now if it's outbound, it's going to be tweaked a little bit different than if it's an inbound lead, obviously. I'm just giving you an example. So most salespeople will get on Zoom and they're like, hey, can you hear me? Can you see me? Okay, cool. Hey, how's your day going, Jason? How you doing today? Oh, yeah, you're doing really good. Yeah, how's the weather over there? You're in Atlanta, right? Yeah, I love Atlanta. I went there See, to the average prospect, when you do chit chat like that, especially how are you doing today? How's your day going? In the prospect's mind, just so everybody understands, they've done massive data on this. This is how they interpret that. I'm just trying to get you to like me so you buy my products or services. And with most people, unless they're a laydown, with most people, they know what you're doing. They know that you are genuinely not interested in how their damn day's going. Now, I've said that before at events and people are like, no, Jeremy, I'm really interested in my leads' days. And I'm like, I'd be very, very highly skeptical if you're interested in every single lead you talk to, how their day's going. Even if you are, your prospects don't believe you are. And why do they not believe you? Because every salesperson that's ever tried to sell them anything from, let's say, pest control in their door to a new truck to a larger life insurance policy to, let's say if you're a doctor and a rep comes in trying to sell you a better knee replacement to, let's say, cybersecurity to your office, typically ask what type of questions at the beginning. How are you doing today? How's your day going? You think it's polite, but in your prospect's mind, that triggers them thinking you're a what? Salesperson trying to sell me something because they don't believe you're interested. So you don't want to use chit chat like that. It does not help you. I can assure you. Okay. So you're going to lean in. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. And then you're instantly going to build status by getting them to the results-based thinking like we did before. Okay, so it looks like you had booked on the calendar about looking at, I guess, possible outside help and getting kind of a higher quality lead so you could grow the business, right? Nobody's going to say no. They'll be like, right. I'm instantly getting them into what? Results-based thinking if you're selling leads or marketing services. Now, depending on what you're selling, you're going to tweak that. Obviously, we teach you how to do all that. But that's how you take the focus off you and get it on them. But you've got to get them into results-based thinking from the very beginning and out of price or cost-based thinking. That's just one example. Hope that there's more connection questions you have to ask after that. You want me to give you another one?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So there's usually another one
Hey, I'm here as long as you want to stay here.
There's usually another one you would ask after that, but then I'm going to put them into what's called a status frame. Okay. Because a lot of people would be like, oh, I have to give them an upfront contract. That was big back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It was much better than boiler room selling, but they would say something like, oh, towards the end of the call, if you feel this is a good fit for you and we feel you're a good fit for us, I'll show you the next steps. Fair enough. Now, with some prospects, I'm talking about the easy sales. They'll say, fair enough. Yeah. So, so they don't say, I want to think it over at the beginning. But with most people, when you say, if you feel we're a good fit for you and we feel you're a good fit for us, most people don't believe you when you say, if you're a good fit for us, because they generally don't believe if you're like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to pay. Here's my credit card. Nope. Sorry. So you're not a good fit for us. I can't take your credit card. People don't believe that. So when you do that, you automatically lose what? Trust. Because they feel like it's just a sales technique. And at the very end, they're still going to give you objections because they could give a rat's butt. So I'm going to relanguage that. I'm going to say, well, let's just stay in your industry. Okay, so this is what's called a status frame. Okay, so John, the first part of this call, it's pretty basic. It's really more for us to find out, kind of what you're doing now to like generate, clients and leads and kind of the results you're getting from that. The results you're getting that from compared to where you're wanting to be. So we can see what that gap looks like to see if we can help. And then, towards the end of the call, if you feel that, hey, this might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps. Would that help? See, that's a much more neutralized frame. See what I'm doing? I want everybody to see what I just did with my hands if you can see me. Yeah, this first part of the call, it's pretty basic. Why would I downplay the call? Why would I want to downplay the call? Why not? This is going to be so exciting. I can't wait. Why would I downplay it? What does that do?
You're coming off needy again if you're too aggressive.
Yeah, I want to disarm the prospect. I have to get them to let their guard down. If I'm too excited and assumptive, most people put their guard up and now you're competing against the wall. Stop doing all the work. You got to get them to do the work. Much easier and you'll sell 10 times more. First part of this call, it's watch my hands. It's pretty basic. It's really more for us to kind of find out, what you're doing now to generate new clients and kind of the results you're getting from that. Look at what I just did with my hands. Results you're getting from that compared to where you're wanting to be. What did I just do in their mind?
Building a gap.
Results you're getting from that. So you want to do like small results. You don't want to do this. Now you also don't want to, the results you're getting from that, like you're not using your hands right. The results you're getting that compared to maybe where you're wanting to be so we can see what the gap looks like to see if we can help. That's the first part. I'm automatically putting the gap in their mind and I'm doing that just softly, neutral. I'm seeding it in their mind. I'm not being aggressive. And then towards the end of the call, if you feel that, hey, this might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps. Would that help? Might be what you're looking for. Possible next steps. You're never going to have somebody that says, no, I'm not going to talk about possible next steps. But if I said towards the end of the call, if you feel it's a good fit for you and we feel you're a good fit for our company, I'm going to show you what to do. Fair enough. With a lot of people, they're not going to say anything there, but what they're going to do is emotionally shut down. And so when you ask questions, they're going to give you very vague and surface level and generalized answers. And what objection do you think you're going to get at the end? I need to think about it.
So you may not have realized you killed the sales call, but if you don't have someone answering you or even interested in the rest of the call,
if they don't open up, if they stay vague and generalized, I promise you it is over 95% of the time. So just by me saying might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps. I'm just neutralizing that where you don't get any sales resistance and their guard stays down because they're like, yeah, that's it. There you go.
All right, Jeremy. I'm gonna let you go, but we ask every guest starting recently one last question to end the podcast. I think it's a great one. A mentor gave it to me and I love it. What do you want your kids to say about you when you die?
That Jeremy helped a lot of freaking people in the world. That's it. That's why I get up here. I don't have to do this. I retired in 2018. Made quite a bit of money as a salesperson, invested it well. I didn't have to work, but I do this because I feel like if I don't, with the skills that I acquired, I'm a big believer that at the end of the day, when I leave this life, that I'm going to have to stand accountable to God. And he's going to ask me, like, did you do your best? Did you, you were blessed with skills. I put people in your life that help you get where you were at. Like I said, God doesn't feed the birds, but he feeds the birds, but he doesn't drop worms in their nest, right? You have to grow those talents. You have to expand on them. And I feel like if I don't, then, I'm going to be judged by that. So
send the elevator back down.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, if they want to, I know we didn't have much time to go through all that stuff. So if they want to learn more about what we do, we'll give them some freebie stuff in the beginning. We'll give them some nibbles, some little hors d'oeuvres. So just have them join one of our Facebook groups. They can go to salesrevolution.pro, salesrevolution.pro. There's about, I could be off a little bit. I think there's 65,000 people in that group. Lots of salespeople, entrepreneurs. They can go in there. We go live 2 or 3 different times a week, different Q&As, different trainings. So they're always welcome to go in there if they want some of that. And then, hey, they want to start learning way more advanced stuff so they sell more. They can always reach out to us in there for sure. And they go to Barnes & Noble and buy the new book. Wall Street bestseller. I think we're number 3 on their list, number 2 on Barnes & Noble's list. Now, here's my only request though. And I don't want to sound needy, but if you decide to buy the book, please, well, I'm not going to say please, buy it from Barnes & Noble, or we're going to get upset with you because we have a deal with Barnes & Noble. The more that you guys buy on their website, the more they stock their shelves nationwide with this orange book. Don't buy it on Amazon. Or if you come into the training and I find out you bought it on Amazon, I'm going to be like, kick that person out of the training because they bought it on Amazon. So they got to buy it on Barnes & Noble's website. Just type in new model selling, Jeremy Miner, Jerry Acuff. And
follow you on social media.
And I'm not going to hope they will sell more just from that book. But if they want more advanced skills, I'd have them join the Facebook group for sure.
Awesome, Jeremy. Thank you, my man. Appreciate you.